to. My mind is dreaming, I'm somewhere else. Can't seem to shake it. I miss the feeling, having fun. No way to fake it. Jump in the ride. Ooh, 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 ooh. It's Friday night. Yeah, 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 yeah. Living it up, oh yeah. Friday night. Living it up at last. Living it up, oh yeah. Friday night. Living it up at last. Living it up,
Recording
oh yeah.
in progress.
Living it up at last. Living it up, oh yeah. Living it up at last. Living it up, oh yeah. Friday night. Living it up.
Madam Chair, you have a live mic.
I'd like to call to order the February 24th, 2022 meeting of the Big Cypress Basin Board. If everyone could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon. I have a few housekeeping items before we get started. We really appreciate everyone joining us for the first public meeting of 2022. For those joining us remotely, thank you for your continued interest and support. As a reminder, today's proceedings are also accessible via Zoom, as well as Collier TV and the district's website. Board members, as a reminder, when speaking, please use the buttons on the dais to be recognized. Check your microphones and speak clearly so everyone can hear you. Mr. Andy Hill will be joining us by Zoom today. Public comment. For those here in person, if you would like to comment on an agenda item, please complete a speaker form and turn it into Ms. Erin Connor, who is sitting to my right. If you're joining by Zoom, use the raise the hand feature and the staff will call on you. If you're participating via phone, please use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself to speak. It's an exciting day to be in the Big Cypress Basin today because we have an employee recognition, and we have an employee who has been with the district for 30 years. And so, board members, if you would join me down in front of the dais, and Lisa Keeler, who is joining us by Zoom, will read the citation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you all a chance to get down front.
Yes.
And you are right, today is an exciting day. We don't really always have a lot of opportunity to do this, and certainly 30 years is quite exciting. And I am so happy and honored today to be recognizing Mako Touche for his 30 years of service with the district. He currently serves as a heavy equipment operator lead here at the Basin Field Station. And when he started 30 years ago, he quickly received the reputation for making things happen here at the Basin. He has worn many hats over the years. He's worked on countless projects for us and earned several certificates and recognitions throughout this time. And at one point during his career, he left and moved to land management, where he was very instrumental in controlling exotics and invasive plants and helped with the restoration efforts of our local crew lands and the bird rookery swamp. And we appreciate his efforts to make these public lands better for us. And even though he was in land management for a while, he never really left the Basin. He stayed in our community, and he eventually returned to the Basin Field Station to make things happen once again on our canals. Mako is the kind of person that goes above and beyond to get the job done every single time. and is focused on doing the right thing for the basin and protecting the environment and the residents who live here. He also has the same reputation with Collier County staff and other sister agencies. As you know, it's so important for us all to work together to accomplish good things. And Mako is also known as the go-to guy with these other agencies. He's always ready to assist when it comes to providing help for our community. And his can-do attitude never stops, especially in the face of storms. Mako is part of a team that worked very quickly to install pumps at our Cocoa and Golden Gate structures immediately following Hurricane Irma. These pumps were critical to moving excess water over our weirs and helped our community recover faster. And we're so lucky to have him on our team. Today, Mako, we thank you for your 30 years of service, your hard work, and especially your dedication to this community and making good things happen every day. Mako, thank you and congratulations. Please come forward.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Mako, for your years of service. And he's joined today with his wife, Dawn, and it's great to have you here, too. I can speak firsthand for his skills. I went out to see some of his work in one of the canals in Collier County, and he was making the long-reach sing. He really is a master at the work that he does for us. And we're very, very lucky to have you and your skill and your professionalism here with the basin. So thank you very much, and thanks for being here too, Dawn. Okay, Lisa, any agenda revisions for today?
No, ma'am, you do not.
Okay, we'll move on to abstentions by board members for items on the agenda. I'll go ahead and poll each board member for any abstentions or disclosures. Mr. Andy Hill?
No, I have none.
Okay, Ms. Rivera?
None for me.
Okay, I have none. Vice Chair Waters?
I do have one, ma'am. So I'm going to go ahead and read into the record some language that was prepared for me by our attorney related to that. I'm abstaining from voting on agenda item 9 as I performed work on the Lake Trafford area water quality feature as an employee of Peninsula Engineering, which was engaged as a subcontractor by GHD pursuant to GHD's contract with Collier County for design work on that.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Waters. We'll move on to approval of the minutes for the October 28th Big Cypress Basin Board meeting. Is there a motion and a second for approval of the minutes or any changes or corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve, ma'am.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Waters. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Rivera seconds. I'll conduct a roll call vote. Mr. Andy Hill?
I approve.
Ms. Rivera?
Approved as written.
Vice Chair Waters?
Yes, approved.
Okay, and I vote yes. The minutes are approved 4-0. This is the first session for general public comment. We have two sessions each meeting for general public comment, one at the beginning and one at the end. We'll start with anyone who is here in person, followed by those joining us remotely. Ms. Connor, is there any public comment? Anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chair. In the room, I have Nicole Johnson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, governing board members. Nicole Johnson here on behalf of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. And I just wanted to highlight an issue to you that I know your staff is aware of and you may be aware of, but it came as certainly, I think, a surprise to us all when we learned on Tuesday through Commissioner Solis at the BCC meeting, thank you to Commissioner Solis for bringing this up, that Bonita Springs appears to be pursuing a permit application to take Bonita floodwater and shunt it down into the Esplanade/Mirasol Preserve and out through the Cocohatchee Canal system. This is an issue that has been a long-standing concern, and the Conservancy and our partners, Audubon and the Florida Wildlife Federation, have spent decades and tens of thousands of dollars opposing and litigating against this concept of taking and diverting this water and sending it down to the Cocohatchee. So I'm not quite sure where Bonita is in their permitting process. Madam Chair, we talked earlier this morning, and I'll be catching up with Lisa Keeler later on this, so thank you for making that connect. But I did just want to get on the record, this is something that environmentally is a horrible idea. From a water quality standpoint, I'm not sure how that preserve can discharge meeting their water quality standards if they're taking Bonita floodwaters. Certainly, there are a lot of flooding issues in Bonita. They need to be resolved, but this is not the way to do it. So we're going to be monitoring this and wanted to just make sure that this was on everyone's radar, a very serious issue.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Up next, I have Jerry Kurtz.
Good afternoon. Always a pleasure to be here before you. Jerry Kurtz with Collier County Stormwater Management and Road Maintenance. I first wanted to say, taking a step back to Mr. Mako here, I've had the pleasure to know him and work with him probably most of his career. I as well got my start in town here with the Water Management District. I worked at the Big Cypress Basin and up at the regulatory office in Fort Myers. So I can attest to Mako's unbelievable dedication and ability to perform this very important work that we do every day. And what a wonderful celebration to celebrate his tenure and 30 years with the Water Management District. Wow. It's, Mako's the kind of people that just make this important work that we do so much more valuable and fulfilling, honestly. So this is wonderful and great to see you again, and thank you for that. I wanted to say that I watched a meeting, one or two meetings ago, and Matt McLean was here with Collier County, and Matt kind of took a different direction. He's still with us. He's with Public Utilities, as I understand it. But, Matt did a good job expressing our gratification for the partnership that we have with you guys. We manage the system together. We're terrific partners. It's just a great example of how we get this work done. The Water Management District, Big Cypress Basin, and Collier County, the water doesn't really know whether it's in the blue part of the system or the red part of the system. It just goes where it needs to go. We manage the water fantastically together, and I just wanted to again say that, I moved out of stormwater capital. So with the county, we accomplish stormwater from two different fronts, so to speak. We have a capital project management side where we bring fairly complex and good projects together with the county on capital improvement side. But as on the maintenance side, you know, all things stormwater management are done by the road maintenance department staff, division staff. So I've been moved over to the road maintenance side of things. I'm the director there now, and you know, it makes the relationship between road maintenance and stormwater maintenance is very much joined at the hip. And if I could have a little more time.
If you could turn off his
Can
button.
I shut it off? Just for your guys' knowledge, you know, I'd say a good half of county stormwater business is run out of road maintenance. Half is run out of capital. So Capital Projects is getting a new director, hopefully soon. But I'm not far away. I'm on the road maintenance side. And again, with all that said, we still all operate, you know, in today's world where there's a lot of tribal kind of behaviors going on. We don't do that. We, you know, it's all one. We're all in this together, and you know, that's how we view it, and we view it the same thing with the Water Management District. And I just wanted to let you know that, you know, I'm where I am, and no plans to go anywhere soon. So you can call on me anytime, and you know, and as well as Stormwater Capital, you know, with the leadership of Trinity Scott and Amy Patterson, as well as me. We're here. We enjoy working with you guys, and I think that's about all I wanted to say. So thank you for allowing me the extra time. I appreciate
You're welcome,
it.
and thank you. And it has been a long history of success with the partnerships that we've had with the county and the Big Cypress Basin and the district. So really appreciate that. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Online, I have Rhonda Roth. Ms. Roth, can you hear us? If so, please unmute. It might be a mistake if you'd like to move on.
Okay, so you don't have anyone else online?
That does conclude public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is a Python Management Program update. And up first, we have Michael Kirkland with an update on our Python Management Program. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. My name is Mike Kirkland. I'm the district's senior invasive animal biologist, and today I'll be providing an update on our Python management program. I'll be discussing background information on Burmese pythons and their ecological impacts to South Florida. I'll provide an overview of our Python elimination program, and finally, I'll give a brief summary of some of the other activities we're involved with, such as outreach, monitoring, and research, including our ongoing partnership with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. Burmese pythons are native to South and Southeast Asia, where this species is in decline due largely to overharvesting. They're one of the 5 largest species of snake in the world, capable of reaching lengths of over 18 feet. They were introduced to Florida through the exotic pet trade business, likely as a combination of both intentional and accidental releases. Because of South Florida's subtropical climate, this species is able to survive and reproduce. The graphic on the right is a classic invasion curve, which shows that eradication of invasive species becomes less likely and control costs increase as an invasive species spreads over time. If a species is not detected and removed early, intense and long-term control methods become unavoidable. So unfortunately, pythons now fall to the far right of this curve. Burmese pythons are generalist predators causing significant ecological impacts. The graphic on the right shows the hypothetical diet that a Burmese python would need to eat in order to reach 13 feet long in a period of 5 to 7 years. And indeed, we are seeing severe mammal declines in Everglades National Park and the surrounding natural areas. They also pose threats to wading bird colonies and are known to carry exotic parasites and pathogens which have the potential to harm native species. These impacts also have direct implications to our agency's restoration efforts. The Everglades Forever Act of 1994 mandates invasive species control, recognizing that habitat restoration will never be complete while the python problem persists. Invasive species management is also part of the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan, and consequently, managing for pythons has been added to the district's core mission. The district has had a direct role in python control since at least 2001, but the governing board decided to take more aggressive action beginning in 2017 when the python elimination program was started. In August of 2019, Governor Ron DeSantis called for program expansions and increased efforts. This resulted in us doubling our number of contractors from 25 to 50, expanding project area, and investing more into research and development, and forming even stronger alliances with interagency partners. Now I'll break down how our python elimination program works. We pay and give access to 50 spirited contractors that are selected through a competitive application process. Contractors are paid an hourly rate to survey the designated program lands, $10 an hour in the core project area, and then a premium rate, $15 per hour, to survey fringe program lands, which is designed to incentivize contractors to help regions that we believe have lower population python densities stay that way. We pay $200 for any verified active nests that are found, and then we pay an additional incentive for every target species removed based on length. So in this example, you can see an 8-foot python is worth $150 to a contractor. Here's our current project area map. Our program began almost exclusively in Miami-Dade County, but now you can see it stretches over 3.5 million acres, which is nearly 6,000 square miles, and encompasses 6 counties. The areas shaded in blue represent the regular pay zones at $10 per hour, and the purple areas are the premium pay zones. The areas in red are restricted zones that represent tribal lands. I'd also like to mention that the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is a close partner and has a sister program that is nearly identical to ours. We are essentially one team with the same mission run by 2 separate agencies. And FWC just recently officially adopted our electronic data collection system, which we are very proud of. Our program has grown more sophisticated over time, and our contractors don't just remove pythons, they also collect valuable scientific data using an app on their smart device customized internally by our own geospatial department. Our data collection methods have garnered national media attention and have become the industry standard for python removal contractors. They're very user-friendly too, so I'll walk you through this going from left to right. You simply log in with your credentials. You choose that you'll be doing a Python contractor survey, enter which agency you're working for, either the district or FWC, and who your assistants are that you have with you. Then there's simply a capture button whenever you capture a python, and there's even a which marks the time and location of where that capture took place. And then there's even a field where you can record additional notes and observations. Since the very beginning, we've been tracking our contractors in real time. This increases data quality assurance. It's a valuable safety tool. It allows us to optimize coverage of the project area. And this feature even provides automated biweekly survey invoices. It knows when the contractor is in the designated project area, and it will clock them in and out automatically. And again, these methods have been adopted by FWC as well. So what are the results of the contractor programs? The bars in red show the dramatic increase in python removals since our programs launched in 2017. They will not be the final solution by themselves, but clearly contractor programs like ours are an important tool in the toolbox. And some people ask if the pandemic slowed us down. Well, not a chance. Our program staff routinely apply creative solutions to complex problems. We've implemented remote program operations and interactions, which have translated into long-term program efficiencies. And our Python program represents the first time where the district has paid contractors via direct deposit. This is a staff savings and a cost savings, both to staff time and taxpayer dollars. The district's Python management activities are not just limited to the contractor program. We're also involved in outreach, including jointly hosting an annual Python challenge where members of the public can take part in a 10-day event to win cash and prizes. We regularly give public presentations helping to raise awareness. And we collaborate with the University of Florida for targeted audience outreach to provide education on the importance of the Python issue, hone field identification skills, and let people know how to report sightings. We are authors and convening members of the Florida Python Control Plan, which is a statewide management plan run by a team of interagency scientists and primary land managers. This effort represents years of collaborative work, and the finalized plan was officially adopted by the district in 2021. Here's a short list of some of the research and monitoring we're involved with. The Everglades Invasive Reptile and Amphibian Monitoring Program with the University of Florida. We have a jointly funded Python mercury level study with FWC, an ongoing environmental DNA project with USGS. We are contributing authors to the upcoming interagency Python synthesis document. And we stay highly engaged in your region too, with Project Area and Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed, Collier Seminole State Park, Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park, and we'll soon be adding Picayune Strand State Forest, in addition to Panther Wildlife Refuge and Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge. And we also work closely with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. In fact, this year we're funding the second Python hatchling dispersal and survivorship program with the Conservancy. This project tracks the dispersal and fate of Python hatchlings from cradle to grave with objectives to provide life history information of pythons in their non-native range. The Conservancy has found at least a 75% mortality rate among python hatchlings within the first 10 months. They've helped identify 2 novel python predators to science, which were the native cottonmouth and black racer snakes. And projects like these help increase our understanding of python life history in their non-native range, which will hopefully lead to more informed long-term management strategies in the future. And our invasive animal team just met with the Conservancy here in Naples just a couple weeks ago, where we toured their impressive facilities and began preliminary discussions for potential future long-term agreements. And this is just a short list of the many interagency partners that our team collaborates with every day. We also maintain our own website where the public can follow our progress, find informational links, and even apply to become one of our contractors. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you for your presentation. I asked Mr. Kirkland to bring something that replicates the python, and I was wondering if you could show that to us now.
So here's a 16-foot python skin that we brought. See, it takes a while to unroll.
Bring it up front here, Mike, and just show us what this looks like.
So here's what we're up against. A python this size is capable of eating an alligator or a deer, and when they reach this size, they're absolutely the top of the food chain.
Thank you, Mako.
Jeez.
And this was a 16-foot python skin? It's great. I mean, when you see that, that is just an amazing picture. And to think that there are thousands of them out there. And they may not be 16 foot long, they may be bigger or smaller. And it's scary to think that they'd be bigger. So I appreciate you bringing that and showing everybody, because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. Are there any questions for Mr. Kirkland from the board? Okay, Andy, you're on Zoom. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, I wish I was there today to talk to you in person. Quick, you had the slide on approved hunters. I wanted to know what the qualifications would be and what is being done to market the ability to be in that position, especially amongst our younger people, as I don't think I'd be such a good candidate to be running and chasing them down personally. But I'd love to encourage others to do so.
Sure. So as I mentioned, you can apply to become one of our contractors from our program website. Well, let me pull that back up. And here's a link to the website. We're looking for people with relevant experience in that. And one of the questions we ask is how many hours each week you can dedicate to this program. We literally have thousands of applicants from all over the world that want to participate. So a good way to get into the program is to become an unpaid assistant to one of our registered contractors. That really has been a good proving grounds for new contractors. We're allowed to have 50 contractors, and the FWC is allowed to have 50 contractors. So statewide, there are 100 paid contractors. And, even if you don't think that you yourself would be a good candidate for this, you're welcome to do ride-alongs with our contractors and see up close and personal the type of work that they're doing.
And a bit further, how many of the contractors would reside in or work our area of responsibility, namely the Picayune and adjacent lands?
So all the contractors have access to these areas on the west coast of Florida, and we have a host of contractors that live in Collier County. So there is access to Picayune, Fakahatchee, Collier Seminole State Parks, and the other areas that I've mentioned for all 100 contractors. And contractors that live here on the west coast will often travel east and vice versa.
Okay, so you don't have, Mike. You don't have like 20 of the contractors are in the Picayune, so we don't have a number on that. Okay.
We don't. The contractors are able to set
Okay.
their own hours and follow their own instincts of where they think that they'll be able to find pythons. It's a little bit different than the systematic surveys that I'm trained to do as a biologist.
Got it. No further questions. Get back to work and get those snakes out of there.
Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And just to follow on the contractor piece, what's the limiting factor to the number 100 statewide?
That is just so the governor in 2019 asked us to double our numbers from 25 to 50. So that was as a result of Governor DeSantis's mandate. That is what we're authorized right now by the governing board to have. But that could always be increased or decreased depending on the governing board's decision.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rivera?
Yeah, Mr. Kirkland, when we spoke earlier this week, you mentioned a fact that I was really surprised. I had lived in Indonesia in the mid-'90s, and I didn't recall pythons being much of a problem, except that sometimes in the rice paddies, grandma could go missing, and but it wasn't a menace like here. And you mentioned that they're almost extinct, that they're endangered species in Southeast Asia.
They're in decline, yes.
Yeah, and can you share why we can't harvest them like they do in Southeast Asia to my fellow board members?
Certainly. So we don't consider pythons to have any food value that are coming out of the Everglades. The Everglades is a natural sink for mercury, a naturally occurring element in the environment. And for whatever reason, the Everglades is a natural sink for mercury, and mercury bioaccumulates through the trophic system. And so if you're an apex predator like Burmese python, you can have potentially dangerous levels of mercury. So though you can't eat pythons, our contractors do utilize the hides and make products out of them. But unfortunately, we can't put them on the menu like we do with lionfish. That's been an effective way to help reduce lionfish populations, is by putting them on local menus. We can't do that with pythons, but we do try not to have the animals go to waste.
Yeah, I found that interesting fact. On page 3, where unfortunately we're way to the right of the graph, there's a small type there that says that we are now moving into asset protection, and more than trying to eliminate them, if you will. So on the following graph, page 4, it shows us the food pyramid, and I was wondering, do we monitor the abundance of these species by geographical area? So if all of a sudden pythons are really penetrating and damaging one of the layers of the food chain, do we replace it, or what do we do with the food chain to not destroy our balances?
Well, unfortunately, we can't, directly replace native animals as they're consumed, but there are monitoring efforts going across the state with baseline data. Just anecdotally, if any of you have visited Everglades National Park 20 years ago, it was teeming with wildlife. And now you don't have to be a biologist to see the impacts that pythons have had. There's a challenge to find a single fur-bearing animal in Everglades National Park while you visit there. So they've had really severe impacts. We are monitoring for native and invasive wildlife, and we are seeing declines in a lot of our natural areas. The best way to restore our native animal populations is to continue to aggressively manage invasive species that are consuming or displacing our native plant and wildlife populations.
So there isn't a model that once a certain species falls below viability, we don't seed it with.
There are no programs in place like that right now. If you recall, when the Florida panther was highly endangered, and of course it still is, we brought in the Texas cougar and mixed some of their genetics to try to bring back big cats in Florida. We don't have programs like that for other species, at least not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Is that it? Vice Chair Waters?
One, thank you for the presentation, Mike. Very good, very informative. The thing that caught my eye that I think is a great idea is the data collection and the GIS side of this. When you're talking about the amount of area, it's hard to even comprehend in looking at some of this stuff that the coverage these have. So I was just curious, could you walk through when we started the GIS data collection, and curious, are we seeing benefits from it yet, or is it too early to tell how much it's helping us?
We've been working with our geospatial department here at the district from the beginning, and it's just grown more sophisticated over time. We're using exclusively Esri products right now, and even the owner of Esri has come to visit us and has given us accolades for the use of their products. We are starting to see the benefits of that. This technology offers instant analytics. We have electronic dashboards that can be customized to the user, from the contractor to program managers to executive leadership. We can provide these custom-made electronic dashboards that can show you many of the statistics that you might be interested in at just a glance in real time.
So I would assume we can sit and kind of go, all right, in one area there's certain habitat type, water levels, and things like that.
Or we can create heat maps and show, where pythons have been captured, and we can vary that over seasons and months, so you can see daytime captures increase during the winter months and nighttime captures increase during the summer months, things like that. Eventually, hopefully this will become more predictive, and that's something we're working on with the Conservancy, whereas as we've collected all this data over time, and this is already starting to come to fruition, but it's going to get better and better, where we're able to predict when and where pythons are going to be.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, great. I have a couple of questions for you. A question that I often get from the public is, are contractors limited to how they can catch a python? And are they allowed to shoot a python?
So firearm regulations are area specific. There are limitations to how you can catch them. For instance, there's no trapping allowed, but almost all of our contractors do live catches by hand. That's the most efficient way to do it. And then they have to be humanely euthanized afterwards. But there are no firearms allowed, for instance, in crew. It's walk-in only. There's no firearms allowed in STA 1 East. But there are very strict regulations for National Park Service lands. You can use a shotgun with, I think it's a number 2 shot or smaller, something like that. So there's no firearms in Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. So the rules vary depending on the area. But it's a great example of how our program can adapt to the needs of specific areas as well.
That explains it. That's probably why there's some confusion out there, because it depends on where that particular contract python hunter actually captured the python. So that's a good information for sure. You mentioned that 75% of the hatchlings don't make it for 10 months, basically. But you didn't mention how many hatchlings there on average are for a python. Could you go into that a little bit? How many eggs and hatchlings?
Sure. So the typical female python, once it reaches reproductive size, will lay between 40 and 100 eggs, typically every 2 years.
Okay, and then how many make it to hatchlings? You assume 100%? Is that the rule?
I wish I had Ian Bartosek from the Conservancy here. He could answer that better. I don't know offhand if we have too many studies that show how many of those eggs actually hatch, how many of those eggs are viable. I'm sure the literature is out there, and I don't recall what it is, but the Conservancy's project has shown at least 75% mortality. It's probably actually a little bit higher than that, maybe closer to 85% mortality. So there's a lot of native animals that will eat python hatchlings when they're still small enough to eat, wading birds, birds of prey, alligators, bobcats, panthers, things like that.
It's too bad enough of them aren't eating enough of the eggs as we try to eradicate the apex predator. You mentioned in your presentation an interagency python synthesis document. That's a big bunch of words there. Could you tell me what exactly that is?
Yes, ma'am. So interagency scientists working on the python issue from all over the state, including scientists here at the district, myself, have gotten together, and the idea is to put all of the institutional knowledge that we've been collecting over the last 20 plus years into one document. So that's going to show known life history, vital rate information, introductions, ecological impacts, socioeconomic impacts, past and present management efforts, and even a look at what the future may hold for python management in the state of Florida.
And when is that due to come out or be complete?
We're hoping that'll be published this year.
No, that'll be very good. Great. Okay, Ms. Connor, is there any public comment?
I have no public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, I really, really appreciate you making the trip to the West Coast today and presenting an excellent presentation.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think we'll go on to the next agenda item before we take a break, and that is the fiscal year 2021-2022 Regional Partnership Program. Mr. Sean Meyer will be presenting.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. It's good to see you again today. Today I have two regional partnership projects to present to you for funding consideration for fiscal year 2022. We have $1 million available for these projects as part of the adopted FY22 budget. So the first project is an ecosystem restoration project at Audubon's Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. Portions of the sanctuary, which were once dominated by marsh and prairie areas, have now become overgrown with nuisance vegetation, primarily in the form of Carolina willow. These overgrown areas have reduced the amount of available habitat for waterfowl and wading birds. It presents challenges for vegetation management as well. So the sanctuary's land management team began efforts a few years ago to restore these areas and bring them back to their natural habitat. You might recall we partnered with the sanctuary last year, and they are requesting funding once again this fiscal year to harvest an additional 200 acres. By removing this nuisance vegetation, these marsh and prairie areas can become reestablished, which is going to increase the amount of available habitat for native wildlife. These aerial photos to the right, what I want to point out here is how quickly at 6 months that the grasses and sedge, this native habitat, actually starts to return once that willow has been removed. So Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary is going to harvest the 200 acres. They're going to then monitor the area for a year. And then after that, they'll have a final report, and they'll come back to you at a future board meeting to highlight their results. This has an eligible project cost of $436,200, and we're recommending funding in the amount of $174,480, or 40% of eligible project costs, whichever is less. The second project I'd like to present today is a water quality feature in the Lake Trafford area that Collier County is going to be constructing. So historically, certain upstream urban flows in the area have gone largely untreated before entering the Immokalee Slough, which ultimately discharges to Lake Trafford. As you may know, Lake Trafford is currently listed as impaired for nutrients by the Federal Department of Environmental Protection. So in an effort to address this, the county is going to be building a 15-acre water quality feature to remove some of these pollutants before going to the slough and ending up in Lake Trafford. Once constructed, the county is going to take monthly water quality samples for a year to evaluate the effectiveness of the project, and then they will also come back with a final report and a presentation to highlight the project. This project is expected to improve water quality by reducing total nitrogen by 42% and decreasing total phosphorus levels by 73%. This has an eligible project cost of $3.54 million, and we are recommending funding in the amount of $720,000 or 20% of eligible project costs, whichever is less. So to kind of recap, we're here for requesting 2 recommendations for you to consider today. The first is for you to consider funding for the projects in the amounts shown below. And then secondly, it's to direct staff to prepare cost share agreements and submit those to the governing board for consideration as necessary. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, are there any board comments or questions? I have a couple questions. On the regional project with Collier County adjacent to Lake Trafford,
Yes?
is that something that we've captured in the lake management plan or Lake Trafford management plan, or would it be outside of that?
No, it is in the Lake Trafford Management Plan under the section of improving water quality in the area through stormwater improvements. And we actually met in January. The project was presented, and the Lake Trafford management team actually voiced their support for the project.
Okay. And in order to realize those reductions and in the nutrient load with this project, have we incorporated some water quality monitoring stations into this project so that we can monitor that?
Yes, so there will be a water quality monitoring station at the input before the water goes into the feature, and then at the 2 discharge points at the outputs of the water quality feature. So you'll be getting water quality coming in, and you'll be able to see water quality going out as it moves through the system.
Okay. Yeah, this project, at least, my thoughts are that this is a project that protects the taxpayers' investment that they made years ago with the Lake Trafford dredging to a tune of almost $22 million, I think, by the time it was completed. And since that time, the Lake Trafford Management Plan team that monitors the way forward, we've given it some oomph to get some of these projects going with not only reintroducing the seagrass, but things like this. So this, I want to commend the county and also Sean, you and the other members of the Basin team for coming up with something like this to maybe make a difference with that water going into Lake Trafford, because I think it could make a significant difference, which is great. Andy, go ahead.
Yes, Sean, 2 questions. First, in terms of the time frame for these projects for budgeting purposes, what fiscal years would these projects fall into?
These projects will be in fiscal year 22. So they will start before October 1, 2022.
Okay. Quickly moving on to the corkscrew. Removal of the exotic vegetation. What's the method for that, and what's your degree of confidence that you won't have to go ahead and do it again in 5 years or whatever? I mean, is this going to be, what's your expectations for how permanent this will be?
So I'll try to explain that they have 4 different types of equipment with like rotary heads. I don't have a picture, but 4 different types of equipment. They shred it. I mean, it's literally shredded to pieces, and it's left to sit there, and it breaks down and decomposes very, very quickly. It's actually pretty impressive. And to answer your second question, so it's really a 3-step process. This is really the first phase, so to speak. So they shred this. They allow those grasses and sedges to return. Meanwhile, they are spot treating for the nuisance vegetation, the willow. They're spot treating for the next 3 to 5 years to prevent those from returning. And the ultimate goal is to do for it to carry fire. That's the long-term goal for the project.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Rivera.
Yeah, Sean, I, out of curiosity, looking at this project where we're taking 15 acres to capture the water flow and create a water feature to be treated and then sent downstream. Did we look at other technologies, or who designed this process for cleaning the water? Was it a consulting firm, or was it the Collier County Pollution Control Department itself?
So it was the Collier County Growth Management Department that initiated it. And then, yes, it was designed by an outside
Firm?
firm.
Do you know what other technologies they may have given consideration to?
I don't with specific respect to this project. What I can say was that this was modeled after the Freedom Park that is in Naples.
Correct.
So it's a very good analogy to what they were trying to do. And the large part of their design was tailored around using that as an example.
Okay,
And they've had great success there.
all right. I would be interested in seeing what kind of technologies they may have considered as competitive to achieve the goals. And then I guess lastly, the 42% nitrogen level, 73% phosphorus, was that trying to hit a target set by an ordinance or by FDEP regulation, or was that what this technology achieves?
So that was the model. Basically, a model was run based on certain physical parameters of the water quality feature, and that was the estimated percent reductions based on that model.
Okay. So it's not being driven by gristle fig or...
No, it is not.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome.
And as you'll recall, Ms. Rivera, we've added water quality monitoring to these projects.
Correct.
So that we can see whether we're meeting that, meeting more, meeting less, but have the science behind it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's just wondering whether the target came first or the capability of the water feature.
It
was
wasn't
what was
necessarily
driving
a target. It was the results from modeling after putting in several parameters of what they were building. So it wasn't a target. They were the results, expected results.
And speaking of innovative technologies, we could use some innovative technologies or methods to eradicate Carolina willow. That is a fast-growing plant that takes over an entire ecosystem before you know it. And so all those creative folks out there that may be listening that have great ideas, that would be one to take on. That's a big one. Okay, anything else from the board? We'll go to public speakers.
Yes, I have John Fahey in the room.
Good afternoon. My name is John Fahey. I do not live in the state of Florida. However, my son is a resident of Lee County. And during a period of vacation, I had occasion to read some of the local news media in regard to the Picayune Preserve. And I'm here also speaking on behalf of my wife, Alva Nancy Fahey, who is present today. And I want to thank you first for having the opportunity to briefly speak to you. My wife is a property owner in the Fakahatchee Preserve.
Excuse me, sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you speaking on this item that Mr. Sean Meyer just briefed here?
Oh, no, I apologize, no.
Okay, we'll have another public comment period, unless it's, did you miss the first public comment period?
No, I was here, but
Okay, we'll have another general public comment period, and we'd love to hear from you.
okay, then thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Erin, is there any other public comment on this item on the agenda?
Yes, I have Rhonda Roth on Zoom. Ms. Roth, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, okay. I tried to speak before at the general comment period, but you weren't able to hear me, and I'm sorry for that. I've been writing to you, and my emails are bouncing back saying there's no such email, and I just don't have a copy of the agenda for today, and the chat is disabled. I was wondering if there was any way either you could email it to me or post it in the chat or something.
Yes. Ms. Connor, could you please reach out to our member of the public who's trying to get in contact with you on the side so that she knows how to get a hold of you? Would that be
Yeah,
okay?
no,
We don't want you
sure,
to.
thank you.
Yeah, we don't want you
thank you-
giving
thank
your
you for that.
email over public forum here. But Ms.
Oh, it's okay.
Ms.
No, it's
Connor
okay. I
will
just-
call
I
you or
just-
reach out to you.
Erin, I wanted to let you know the email was misspelled in the first conference registration. It was, you had a couple of letters reversed, then I reversed them and it still didn't go through. So just so you know, there's a trouble with your email.
Okay, we'll make
But
sure
thank
we
you.
get your public comment today, though. Thank you for being patient with us.
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, so we are on item 9 on the agenda, regional partnerships. Is there any other public comment on this item, Ms. Connor?
That concludes public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Did you have something, Sean?
I just wanted to reiterate my my request for a recommendation for funding for the projects.
Colonel, are you looking for a motion?
Well, Mr. Vice Chair Waters is abstaining from this entire item. So, yes, I will be asking for a motion now from the board and a second to approve the funding for the Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary for ecosystem restoration and to Collier County for Lake Trafford area water quality feature. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, great, thanks. Motion by Ms. Rivera. Do I have a second? I'll second.
Yes, I second.
Mr. Hill will second it. Thank you very much. I'll conduct a roll call vote. Again, Mr. Waters is abstaining. Mr. Hill?
In favor.
Ms. Rivera?
You have my support.
And I vote yes, and so this passes 3-0. Thank you very much, Sean. I think we could probably go to the next item since you're up there at the podium, and then we'll take a break.
Okay. So again, Sean Meyer, project manager. So recently, you had asked staff to look at an alternative to using traditional sod in our canal banks, on our canal banks, as citizens had raised concerns in the past about seeing grass clippings from mowing in our canals. These grass clippings come from fertilized yards, and they add excess nutrients to our waterways. So over the past year, we've been communicating with Naples Botanical Garden to develop a study to look at possible solutions to this problem. So the purpose of this project is to conduct a study to look at the feasibility of using native low-growing ground cover along canal banks. By using a different type of vegetation other than sod along our canals, it has the potential to significantly decrease mowing costs in the future. Less mowing, in turn, would potentially reduce the amount of grass clippings in the canal. If we have fewer grass clippings in the canal, then ideally we will improve the water quality. Another important consideration that we had to factor in the development of this study was to select plants that are going to maintain the structural integrity of the canal banks in order to prevent erosion from occurring. And this is especially important during high flow events. So we're excited to partner with the Naples Botanical Garden. As everyone knows, they are our local experts in the area, and we are extremely grateful to have them in our backyard to be able to utilize their vast knowledge. The garden staff will grow and install the plants to be used in the study. They will then monitor the study area for a year, and they'll provide a final report and come back to you at a future board meeting to discuss their results with recommendations. The study is actually going to be conducted along the recently expanded Freedom Park Canal, which is located on the north side of Freedom Park. And we were talking about good partnerships between the county and the basin. Well, this is another good example. So the county has allowed Naples Botanical to conduct the study along the canal bank there, and they've also been instrumental in assisting with the study design in order to ensure that the project is a success. So it's another great example of the partnerships you were talking about. So I'm asking for you today to provide funding for Naples Botanical Garden to study the feasibility of using the native ground cover on canal banks in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Appreciate it. One of the implications for this study, if it is successful and the board approves it today to go forward, is the fact that it reduces the mowing costs in the district. And while here in the Big Cypress Basin, we monitor, or we operate and maintain the canals, the primary system for Collier County, district-wide, they actually have to take care of all of the canals. And when you're looking at 2,100 miles of canals plus, I don't know if that number is close to being accurate, but it seems to be in the ballpark. Mowing costs are quite astronomical, I would think. So this would be an opportunity to replace that sod with something else that performs as well as sod does and would provide that opportunity. So this is a very interesting study that's been presented to us, and it involves a three-way collaboration, which is the Botanical Gardens now and the Big Cypress Basin and Collier County. So any board comment? Go ahead, Ms. Rivera.
This is a very interesting project, in particular for myself, who I reside in a small island, and we are full of sod and fertilizer and grass clippings. So my question is, I absolutely support this study. If I don't know if it's been established on the parameters of the study, whether they can also comment on fertilization and watering needs associated with these type of ground covers if used in other applications other than on the canal banks.
I'll try to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So are you asking if they will be doing any fertilization or watering once it's installed?
Or can they report out on the need of any fertilization and or watering for these type of plantings?
So there will be no fertilization and there will be no watering because not all of the canal sections where this would maybe be implemented would have, well, not that you would have access to fertilizer, but you want to treat this as much of a real-life situation as possible. So you may not always have access to water, for instance. So no, we are trying to treat this as much as a real-life example as possible. That way we can draw conclusions from our results.
If I could just say that we're hoping that the ground cover or ground covers that they present are ones that can exist without fertilizing.
And without watering.
And without mowing, for the cost savings, if nothing else. And
this would be a terrific solution for swales and the backside of properties that are adjacent to canals or bays, they basically have the same issues we're talking about here, but worse because they're constantly being fertilized and watered in home uses.
Yes. So I'll circle back to you. The species that have been chosen for the study, they are widely recognized species that can handle drought, low salinity conditions. They are ideal for this situation.
Terrific. Can't wait to see the results.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Right. Vice Chair Waters?
One, I think it's a great idea and a great project. Just wanted to ask, one of the purposes of this ground cover is to stabilize and maintain the slopes on the canals. Is that going to be part of the monitoring that is done, is to see which plants hold well and don't allow that bank to give versus, other things may allow that bank to slide in, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of the ground cover and it might rule something out?
So, yes, directly and indirectly. So directly, that they will be doing visual inspections once a month, but they will also, getting into it a little bit more, the indirectly part of it is they're going to be looking at the root structure to see how well established the root structure is. So while that may not tell you exactly, whether it worked in terms of erosion, they will be doing visual inspections before and after pictures to document this stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think the intent is to get something that's as good, if not better, in the performance that we have with sod, but that minimizes our maintenance cost and the manpower cost it takes to maintain it. I mean, you've got that whole circle of sod maintenance.
Yes, I can't speak for the field station for sure, but I believe it's in the area of 70 miles out of the 140 that they maintain of canal banks. I believe it's in the area of 70, so roughly half is what they're responsible for mowing. So that's a huge number.
And that's just in the Big Cypress Basin. And we've got folks here, Rich is here from the district today, and he could probably give us some numbers that are a lot larger than that when you're talking the South Florida Water Management District overall. So I'm excited about this. This is really, I'm hopeful that we come up with some options. The Botanical Garden, as you know, the Naples Botanical Garden has broadened in scope for their plant knowledge since Hurricane Irma. They've had a lot of collaboration with some Caribbean partners on plants. They're doing exciting things at the Naples Botanical Garden. They're wonderful to even consider partnering with us and helping us, and also with Collier County. So I'm excited about this if we get some results, and would be even best of all. So I'm anxious to see what they come up with. But let's hear if there's anyone from the public that wants to comment on this item.
Madam Chair, I have no public comment, but before we continue, I did want to say that our agenda and all the presentations for today are on our website at www.sfwmd.gov under the News and Meetings tab.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right, if there's no further board comment, no public comment, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion and a second to approve the funding for this study.
I'll make a motion, ma'am, for funding an amount not to exceed $100,000 for this study.
Thank you, Vice Chair Waters.
And I'll second it.
And Ms. Rivera seconds. I'll conduct a roll call vote. Mr. Hill?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Vice Chair Waters?
Yes?
Ms. Rivera?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That passes 4-0. Thank you very much, Sean. Really appreciate your work on this. With that, I'm going to take a break here, a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 2:54, but before we break, I'd like to say, in the tradition of the Big Cypress Basin Board, we have cupcakes again today in celebration of Julie Mattock's birthday. And she's here today. You know, she's one of our finance professionals that helps keep us on the straight and narrow with the budget. And happy birthday, Julie, and I hope everyone, even Mr. and Mrs. Fahey and the members of the public, I hope you'll enjoy a cupcake too if you want something sweet this afternoon. Okay, you're welcome. So we'll reconvene at 2:55.
I don't mind you coming here, wasting all my time. 'Cause when you're standing oh so near, I kinda lose my mind. It's not the perfume that you wear, it's not the ribbons in your hair. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll see you through. I've got to keep you pleased in every way I can. Gonna give you all of me as much as you can stand. Make love to you right now, that's all I want to do. I know you need it, girl, and you know I need it too. 'Cause I found what the world is searching
Yes.
for.
Okay, great. We'll call the meeting back to order, please. And there's still a few cupcakes up here for those of you who didn't get one. The next item on the agenda is the Inspector General analysis of our audit report of the Big Cypress Basin fleet utilization and replacement. And we're really happy to have our Inspector General from the district here, Tim Behrens.
Thank you. This presentation is regarding an audit that we did last year on the district-wide fleet. And this slide gives you a picture of the entire fleet, and included, there's approximately 1,000 different fleet units, and included in that, and in the district's database of fleet includes the Big Cypress Basin. To give you an idea, so that kind of brown, reddish brown slice of the pie there that says BCB at about 5%, that's approximately the amount that the BCB basin represents of the entire fleet, and that is the portion that this presentation is about today. The BCB fleet is composed of 54 units, and the way the fleet is classified, we have on-road, we have off-road. The on-road or light trucks, medium trucks, heavy trucks. The off-road, we have construction equipment, marine equipment, the trailers and tractors and so forth. And on this slide, we give an example of the type of fleet items that may comprise those various categories. So the objective of this analysis was of the audit was to look at just the BCB's fleet and apply some of those same procedures to the BCB fleet, particularly looking at the utilization and particularly the how many of those units meet the replacement criteria. So the fleet replacement criteria for light vehicles, for example, is 12 years. This is the criteria that's used. So 12 years or 180,000 miles. For the heavy trucks, it's 15 years, 250,000 miles. Construction equipment is 20 years to 5,000 hours. And the marine equipment, 15 years or 5,000 hours. This is just the initial cut of criteria that's looked at, but the actual decision on whether to replace or retire a piece of equipment is ultimately relies on a mechanic's assessment of that equipment. So even if a truck has 108,000 miles on it and the mechanic says this is good for a couple more years, it's kept on the road. And or in fact, some vehicles that have 250,000 miles on them in the fleet. So it's a case-by-case basis at that point. It's not automatic. In looking at the utilization, there were a few items that were became underutilized at Big Cypress Basin and then were transferred out, a bulldozer, a backhoe, dump truck. The important point here is that these were actually loaned to the basin. They were originally purchased with the Okeechobee Basin funds. Important point here, though, is that this equipment, the maintenance, was paid for by BCB budget funds while they were being used by the basin. So our replacement analysis, if you look over in the right column in all three of the categories, zero, the zeros are an important thing. None the Big Cypress Basin Board's fleet currently meets those replacement criteria. When we did this audit last in 2015, the BCB, almost a third of the units needed to be replaced at a cost of almost $1 million. So the important point here is that there's been a significant improvement since this audit was last done. However, there, as equipment, it ages every year, so we have to look forward at what may be coming up and over the next 5 years. It's estimated that the basin would need approximately $1.4 million. And the pie chart gives you an idea, by year of how much we can expect. So it's not even each year. It varies by those years. And here's a detail of the specific pieces of equipment. I'm not going to go too much in this because your next presentation, you're going to get more details from Andrew on this, on the replacement. This chart shows that the maintenance cost, it had been running a little over $100,000, and we had a dip down there in 2021, and that was primarily due to those three large pieces that were transferred out that had been being maintained by the basin. So in summary, the good news is that, as of today, the BCB fleet is currently up to date, and nothing meets that replacement criteria, which was a significant improvement from the approximately 35% in 2015. And the projected replacement needs, however, that you'll have to look at funding over the next 5 years is estimated at about $1.4 million. With that, I'll take any questions and discussion.
Thank you so much. Is there any board comments or questions? Is there any public comment? Aaron?
Sorry, I have Andy that just raised his hand.
Okay, Mr. Hill?
Tim, we were talking a little bit about this the other day. I'm glad that you don't have any opportunities for replacement in the next fiscal year because there wouldn't be anything available anyhow, given the backlog of demand for vehicles, let alone trucks. I would like to talk about the issue of the opportunity for EVs, specifically the Ford F-150 Lightning. As I noticed, pretty hefty maintenance costs. I am not personally familiar with that vehicle since it's just coming out on the market, but I am familiar with Tesla, as I've owned a Tesla for going on 4 years with virtually no maintenance besides tires, but that may be a personal issue. Where do you see the electric vehicle coming in to reduce fuel and maintenance costs?
I think Andrew's going to cover that in his presentation. He has a slide on that, so I would defer that to him.
Now, and also, I don't see, will he also touch on gasoline? I don't know if somebody is, if we get gasoline for free?
We did not, this audit did not address fuel cost. I mean, as we all obviously know, that's something that's going up with everything else.
It'll be more expensive tomorrow than it was today, too. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Mr. Hill, are you asking about fuel in relationship to budgeting and the cost of that, or just so that I understand?
Yeah, so where the question is coming from is that the slide 12, I'm looking at maintenance costs and the inventory. I think it would be appropriate also to look at the fuel costs, too, since that's a component of the cost of utilizing the fleet.
Yes, this does not include fuel costs. This is really the cost of just
it's just
maintaining and repairs and maintenance.
Yep, I got it. Yeah, because I think there is somewhat of a relationship there. But okay, I got it. Maybe that's something for another time.
Okay.
Or we can ask when Mr. Wolf comes up to give his presentation, we can ask him about that as well.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Any other board comments? Any additional public comment?
I have
Hands
no
raised?
public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate it, you being here today with us, Tim. Thank you for coming and presenting this report.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, the next item is the Big Cypress Basin 5-year fleet plan discussion, and this is with Mr. Andrew Wolf. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Wolf. I am the superintendent at the Big Cypress Basin Field Station, and I'll be going over the proposed 5-year fleet plan. The first slide here shows that the criteria that the district used, we also use the same one that the Inspector General went over in the earlier slides. We use the same criteria for doing our 5-year fleet plan. This shows every piece of equipment that we will be purchasing in the next 5 years, that they do meet either the age, the mileage, or the hours criteria for the upcoming 5 years. Here we have the cost of the equipment for the next 5 years. The first line item is a Truxor aquatic weed harvester. That is a new purchase in addition to the fleet. And then in the same year, FY23, we're getting one crew cab pickup truck, $42,000. And then in FY24 is when the Gradall, which we're changing to one that's on tires for $593,000. I'll concentrate on these top 2 years, and then we'll look at the rest of them later in the slides. But now notice that these are current prices as of today. These prices will change rapidly over the next year. So the first is the Truxor aquatic weed harvester for $150,000. This is a specialized piece of equipment that will take aquatic vegetation out of the canals, and it's especially for shallow canals such as Henderson Creek. Here is a contractor we hired to remove vegetation, and we also got a first-hand look at how it performed. You see on the left, it can come right off the trailer and drive into the canal, so there's no need for boat ramps. And it's a small trailer and a small pickup. It's not a large piece of equipment, so it's very versatile. On the right, he's cutting the vegetation underwater. And then he puts on a different bucket and it scoops it out. This is Henderson Creek in front of the hospital there. We've had real good luck with this, and the trials look real good, and I think it'll be a great asset for our shallower canals. It also can be used in deep canals too. Next one in FY23 is a pickup truck. This will meet the mileage criteria. We'd like to repurpose it for our pump stations to move it into a lower mileage situation. When we do shifts at pump stations, we're short on vehicles. So this would work perfect for that, and as a spare truck for when we're repairing a vehicle in the shop. FY24, we have our Gradall, which will be 20 years old in FY24. We'd like to switch to a larger Gradall, and one that is on tires. As you can see in the pictures on the left, it can operate on basically a sidewalk or any other surface and not do any damage to it. It has a clamshell bucket that's on the right that you can pick out items from the canal, debris, tree limbs. Also place rock very precisely with this piece of equipment. FY25 is an 18-yard dump truck, which today's cost is $180,000. This will be 26 years old in FY25. All these will be reevaluated on a yearly basis to see if it's the best fit for our operation, and it could change years out. FY25 is another four-door pickup truck, which will meet the mileage criteria. FY26 is for a Conver aquatic harvester. This is a harvester that's used more in deeper water, such as Golden Gate Canal, and it'll be 13 years old and will meet the hour criteria. In fiscal year 26, we have a pontoon boat that will be 21 years old. And like I say, we'll be reevaluating these as the years come closer to see if it can be refurbished or if we even need it at all. FY 27 is a skid steer loader, which will be 16 years old and will meet the hour criteria. That's also quite a bit in the distance, so we'll be reevaluating that as it gets closer. And then there was a question about electric vehicles. Currently, the district's policy is not to buy electric vehicles at this time due to the shortage of charging stations and the batteries, or how they perform in deep water. But we can look at changing that if you wanted to. We could get some numbers for the next governing board meeting to see what it would cost for the charging stations and for maybe purchase one as a test vehicle, just to, we can come back with some numbers and see if it would be feasible. And with that, any questions?
I think what might be helpful to the board, and I don't, this is just from my perspective, and I hope Mr. Hill is also thinking about this, is maybe somehow or other do the analysis of that cost for charging stations, that, and then also compare it with the fuel that Mr. Hill is asking about. And because, do you have a feel for how much we spend on fuel?
No, I don't have that number with me now.
No, yeah, that's because it keeps going up. And so I'm sure that part of the budget has increased, and that's probably something that we probably want to get some visibility on. Okay, Mr. Hill, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Andrew, I think probably a good place to learn more, since again, I'm not familiar personally with I think we're talking about the Ford F-150 Lightning would be the best similar product, although I think some people would be high demand if we got the Cybertruck in the fleet, but that would create all kinds of problems politically, I'm sure, with maybe the district wanting that vehicle for somebody special. I'm being sarcastic. Tim Zellers, who's owns the Ford dealership, probably makes sense for us to go down and pay him a visit and learn more. He has a rep that is like the EV specialist. Probably makes sense to visit with that person. On the charging station, basically, with the perfect setup, based on my experience, is that you actually have a low grade, not a fancy one, but a decent charging system at the place where the vehicle would be overnight. So you simply plug it in at the end of the day, and it's fully charged the next morning and ready to go. The real opportunity, again, would be this fuel savings, because you're basically going to eliminate the need for gasoline, which we know is just going to continue to go up over time, although I expect a little bit of a relief later this year from our current $100 per barrel. But that's one issue. And then obviously the emissions. I didn't talk about the emissions in with the prior speaker, but that's another factor is to of the air pollution that would be pumping out as a result of that. So it would be a good start. Yes, just starting with one vehicle would be the way to go. And given the tightness of the supply and the availability of vehicles, that will free up in the next couple of years, but it's going to be tight. So it's a good thing we're not pressing for anything immediately. But there is a big learning curve, and I've written on that recently in some projects that I've worked on. So there is a heck of an opportunity, but there will be a learning curve, and it's best just to start small. And oh, by the way, here's an idea. Hertz rents Tesla vehicles, the more basic, just around town, the Model 3 and the Model Y. That may be an opportunity for staff to use one of those vehicles as a way to get familiar with the process. Andrew, maybe that's something you want to think about.
Like I say, we can bring back some numbers to your next board meeting and kind of compare what a gas pickup truck and electric one would do and what the extra upfront cost would be for an electric vehicle. We can do that for you.
Yeah. I've got a fair bit of experience. If you want to speak to me personally, if that's okay with Lisa, we can work on that.
Yep,
Yeah.
sounds good.
I'm
What-
good, thank you.
Andy, you know, I was happy to hear that you're thinking of a pickup truck, because certainly I doubt that we'll be adding Teslas to the fleet here at the Big Cypress Basin. So I don't know if one of those could be made available to the basin, Andrew Wolf and his staff to do a test with. I don't know if that contact that you mentioned would provide that opportunity for us to maybe do a demonstration or a test or of some kind. I think that should also be
would think so.
considered. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
that-
by the way, the county has ordered 5 of them, so they're on board. And then again, they have maybe bigger needs, but they want to just stick their, get exposed to the concept as well. So, and you won't be getting delivery for a year or two anyhow, so.
So, and you've got Rich is here to hear this, and everybody else that have heard your comments. So I think that if we could we could maybe get a proposal or something, work with Andrew on that. Vice Chair Waters.
Yeah, just the one thing that Andrew, you point out that I think is an important one is basically, we've got to make sure that after a storm, we have the ability to get out and check things and make the repairs we need to make. So I don't know much about the world of electric vehicles, but would also be interested to know what we would need in terms of a generator or backup power if power was out to the field station. Could we use whatever kind of generators we have there to power and charge electric vehicles, and would it happen quickly enough that we could charge them overnight and be back out?
Yeah, I can check on that and make a presentation on it, and I'm sure our generators would be big enough at the field station for backup power. I just don't know about any place outside of there, if you'd need to charge up someplace else, but we can address that. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And high water events too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I don't know if Mr. Hill has driven his Tesla through high water or not. Andy, do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, well, I have the Model X. It's a little different, but it can hit a button and it just jacks up. And it's been through the Picayune, so it gets dirt on it. It gets pretty muddy. It's actually a pretty incredible vehicle, but that's not what you're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
Again, although I don't think you should, the sedans, the Model 3 and the Model Y, for just driving around Collier County in our area of responsibility, those are more, that's a middle of the road product, but I didn't see anything about any need for that. You're all talking pickup trucks, so we're on the F-150 Lightning, which again is just coming on the market. So I'm tempted to buy one, but again, it's not going to be available for some period of time. So there's a lot of new things coming out, and the charging, I just don't have that down yet. Tesla has 3,500 charging stations nationwide, 2 in Naples, all over the place. That's not even a factor. There's so many of them.
Yeah. And I
but
think
then again, you're going to have your own charging at home. So
yeah,
hopefully that helps.
Good thoughts. Good thoughts, Andy. I think we should let our staff take a look at some of the options and see if there's anything that's feasible or not, and come back to us.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Any other?
Otherwise, thank you.
Any other questions for Andrew? Is there any public comment, Aaron?
I have no public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, my favorite part of the meeting is Miss Candy Heater with the fiscal year 2022-2023 preliminary budget discussion. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. So the purpose of today's presentation is to inform the public and the board of the changes that transpired from October whenever we presented the preliminary budget for fiscal year 22-23 to when we submitted to the governor's office as well as the legislature, which is statutorily required by January 15th. But before we get into that slide of the changes, I like to always start with kind of illustrating some grounds that we've covered. So we've made hit some milestones. We've had a good discussion in October on the 23 preliminary budget, submitted, like I had mentioned, met our statutory requirement of submitting the district budget, which included the Big Cypress Basin's budget, January 15th to the legislature and the governor. And then we're here today to further discuss, those changes. So what we have before us is the April board meeting to have discussions on the 23 budget if desired, as well as then we start back into some statutory requirements of the July and August timeframe, where we come back to the Basin Board for the millage rate and tentative budget, tentative and then final in August. So the changes that has transpired since October is about $33,784 increase. So whenever we presented in October, the Basin budget was $14,665,727. It was about a $2.776 million increase from the budget that we're in right now, the 22 fiscal year budget of $17.4 million. And right now, the budget as it stands is at $14,699,511. Those changes, the $33,784 change or increase is contributed to the benefit costs related to the Florida Retirement System, also known as FRS. So it's a projection that your staff in the budget office put together, because every year the legislature does take action on what those FRS rates should be in accordance to statute, and that statute's 12174. And so we do a small projection to where we don't have a big swing in the numbers between preliminary and tentative time frame, to give you a good look at what we think that the budget for the personnel budget and benefit budget should be. So with that said, when you have an increase, you also have to offset it with revenues to cover it, because you must have a balanced budget. So those revenues, we did a very conservative estimate based on EDR estimates on the housing market growth within Collier County, and we projected an additional $31,000 increase potentially in revenues that we may bring in. And then we also needed to use about $1,850 of your fund balance to cover that $33,000 increase. So this is an illustration, as was provided in October, of a comparison of your revenues right now as they reside for the 22-23 preliminary budget at $14.69 million compared to the $17.4 million adopted budget for 22. And as you see, very similar. The ad valorem, still continues to be the largest revenue source for the basin. And then your usage of fund balance. That usage of fund balance, the $3.2 million, does include your $2 million emergency reserve that we have in case we would have, a hurricane event or an emergency and need to pull from those funds to help with basin activities. Where the money goes, again, it is a comparison, a pie chart comparison of the various categories of expenditure categories between the adopted 22 and then the 23 preliminary budget. Again, it's a balanced budget compared to the revenues on the previous slide. And again, very stable category comparisons where you don't see two very large increases. The capital projects, as you see, has decreased, and that was, one of the main reasons why there is a decrease between your adopted budget and the preliminary budget as it is now, due to the ups and downs of your capital program and your project needs for the multi-year projects. But all the other categories remain very consistent, which is, a good indicator that the basin has very stable expenditures and needs. So the next steps is your budget staff continue to work with your basin administrator and you as a board to fine-tune the needs of your budget for 23. So we'll continue to report back, and any changes that may transpire between now, and over the next few board meetings that are upcoming. Where we do foresee some changes is obviously, within the revenue updates, because we'll have our estimates or our real numbers for July 1, our taxable values. And then the fund balance, your accounting department right now is working on settling the 21 books. Therefore, we'll know how 21 ended, revenues to expenditures, and what the basin's funds look like balance-wise. So we should know that around the May timeframe, because statutorily, by June, you must submit your audited books to the state of Florida. And then the capital program, based on, how the projects move through the 22 fiscal year, that all, obviously has an impact on the future cash flows and forecasts of those projects that are in your 5-year financial forecast. And with that, I am open for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Ms. Heater. I thought that your comments about the budget in general, that where we see the most volatility right now is in the capital projects. And is that because of the supply chain impacts to those projects?
That is correct, as well as, the increases that Mr. Hill could probably speak on much more eloquently than myself, but, the cost of cement, the cost of steel, as well as Mr. Waters, those are impacts, to the projects, as well as vendors. We are coming out of, obviously, COVID, but there has been some situations where we've had vendors who've had employees that needed to maybe take some time because of illness.
Do you think there's any advantage to maybe looking at capital projects in terms of timing, either moving things forward or delaying some other things? What's your sense there?
So I would say that we need to keep very close discussions with Lucene and Alan, that are over your engineering department or bureau rather, and watch those project cash flows, as well as Jack in the engineering bureau, who's our estimator, for the district and our projects, and maybe lean upon them to see if they do feel that maybe some of the turn dirt type projects versus projects that require, steel, cement, et cetera, if we should move things around. So I'll take that back as an option to look into or to discuss.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know Lucene has a good handle on things, because it's just, and Mr. Hill may have some thoughts on this, but, this is probably not a condition that's ending anytime soon. And so is there a benefit to maybe reordering some things? I don't know, just asking the question. Mr. Hill?
Yeah, first, Candy, I was wondering, what's do you have a number for the increase in your labor costs?
So for You mean for the
Or
person?
what you're expecting that?
The person,
Yeah, for
the,
you.
for the personnel budget for staff, Mr. Hill?
Right.
It's that
Yeah.
it's about that $33,000 mark, that's in this presentation from the,
Okay.
yeah. And that's basically what I had mentioned, related or contributed to the Florida retirement system. When we will know a better estimate of what the basin's expenses will be for the personnel budget is whenever we come back in the July timeframe, because over the spring months is when the departments work on their staffing allocations based on, work plans. So what that means is based on, what the basin needs are, then, staff look at how much time is needed to support the basin activities. So that's when we see some fluctuations.
Yeah, and then on your contractors, would they be competing with commercial projects, I assume? Maybe a fellow board member could help on that.
Yeah, yes, typically, I think a lot of the same folks that you see doing work for the district also do private work in many cases. And so when everything's very heated up in terms of private development, I think it raises costs for everybody.
Correct.
And also increases the competition for materials, which a lot of them are based in petroleum, which raises costs no matter what. But then you get a little bit of a feeding frenzy, which is what's happening now, where it's hard to predict, to your point, Madam Chair, it's hard to predict from 2 or 3 months out, let alone 5 years, what things will cost. So I don't know how long this new normal is going to last.
It may just become normal. Yeah, right. Just like you said,
Yeah.
new normal. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my only guess is I live in the future, and I'm wrong half the time. I would probably think that if you get in the second half of the year, depending what the Federal Reserve does, that we could see some cooling. And I think that there's just with the price increases, there's going to, at some point, going to be some pushback, and some projects will just become not economically viable. So maybe we get into next year, maybe there could be some little bit more ease in getting things done. I don't think the price will go down, but maybe it'll be a little bit more efficient as staff, and we'll be hopefully past COVID, and that'll be all forgotten, and it'll be just a little easier to get some things done. So I'm disappointed to see the projects down significantly from the prior year, but I guess, there is a rational reason for that. So we'll dig into that, I guess, as we get closer to final approval of the budget.
Yes, and one of the reasons why the project decreased from the 22 budget to the preliminary is success stories as well. Because several of the projects are pegged to be completed. But as you all said, this all depends on how things go over the next months. And then,
okay.
Yeah. And then also, we have engineers' estimates of projects, which help us with our cash flow and our estimates of what's needed. And when bids go out and bids come back in, there's always the opportunity to take a pause if bids come in way excessive, of what is estimated.
Yeah. Anything else from the board? Good discussion. Appreciate it, Candy.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this item, Aaron?
I have no public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Candy. Appreciate it. All right, the next item is the first opportunity for board comment. Do any board members have comment at this time? Vice Chair Waters.
Just real briefly, Madam Chair, I want to congratulate you. I understand you were confirmed by the Senate for your most recent appointment and have another couple years of service in front of you. So congratulations, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's quite an honor to serve in this position, and it was a great opportunity to be invited by the Senate Environment and Natural Resources Committee to Tallahassee in January for confirmation hearings. and it was a great experience, and I want to thank the Senate for their continued support and confidence in me, and Governor DeSantis for the original appointment. So thank you very much, Vice Chair Waters. It means a lot. Thank you. Anything else from the board? Okay, we'll move on to the technical reports. Field Station Activity Report with Mr. Andrew Wolf.
Good afternoon. Our field station activity report. Be going over maintenance activities, remedy tracking status, tree removal project, and a 3-month look ahead. Going into the dry season, one of the major issues is keeping water in the canals. As here you see, we've been putting in the V-notch plates for the dry season on Miller 2 to raise the canal level. Dre, who's new to the structure maintenance team, is doing preventive maintenance on an air compressor and an air dryer at GG3 structure, which PMs at this time of year is vitally important to have everything ready for the wet season. We are automating 951 South structure. Here we have our electrician, Michael, and Mako actually in the excavator, burying conduit lines. We have all the electricity ran to the structure. Only thing we're waiting on is SCADA to give us the controllers, and this will be fully automated by wet season this year. Doing vegetation removal in Henderson Creek, as you saw in the pictures earlier. We use our long arm track hoe and our conver when there's enough water for the conver to float in there. In this particular area, we removed 200 cubic yards of aquatic vegetation. And then you also saw these before. We hired the truck saw contractor to remove vegetation and also to see how it reacted and how it worked in the shallow Henderson Creek Canal. And doing some erosion repair on Fauca Union Canal. We backsloped the canal bank so water doesn't just flow over the canal bank and erode out during heavy rainstorms. And on remedy tickets, we've had a banner quarter here on cars and canals. We've had 7 go in our canals since the last governing board meeting. Most of them are closed out now and repairs have been made. Vandalism, only 1. Flooding complaint, 1. Bank erosion, we had 3 complaints, which were taken care of. And debris in the canal, we had 1 complaint. We also, since the last governing board, did a tree removal project at Fauca Union Canal that was from southeast 52nd Avenue to the pump station. A wildlife survey was completed on October 25th, and the contractor started the day after. And here's some before and after pictures. As you can see on the left, you can see the pump station on the extreme left of the picture. So these trees were on the canal bank and could have fell in during a high water event or a hurricane and basically stopped the pump station. And the picture on the right is the after of the tree project. 3-month look ahead is mechanical harvesting of vegetation, washout repair. For structure maintenance is PMs and any repairs we needed to get ready for the wet season. And for system is just continuing to support the dry season AVOs. For our pump stations, again, this is a perfect time to do preventive maintenance. On the left, Stephen is doing a PM on a generator. And on the right, Kyle and Stephen are troubleshooting a lube water pump at the Fauca Union pump station. Michael Perry is working on the drive line of the Caterpillar engine for doing a PM at the Miller pump station, also doing a PM on the trash rake at Miller. At Merritt pump station, Mr. Charles is actually cleaning off buzzard debris, which is a never-ending project out there, and then doing PMs on the drive shaft of the main engine at Merritt. The 3-month look ahead will respond to seasonal pump orders, house cleaning, preventive maintenance, and On the right, you'll see pictures of some pump shafts that we're changing out the pump shafts in 3 of the pumps this dry season. These were supposed to be delivered in December. They were delivered on February 3rd, so we're kind of running a little behind on this, but we've already taken one pump shaft out, and we're about ready to reinstall it. So hopefully we can get all 3 done before wet season. Next governing board meeting, I'll have some better pictures of the project. And any questions concerning field station activities?
Board comment and question, Ms. Rivera?
Yes, I was wondering on a separate subject, but within the maintenance and all of the work that your staff accomplishes, could you comment on your safety and accident report? What kind of hours you've accrued without an incident?
We really don't keep an hour log of how many hours it's been. I've seen that in some businesses, where we've gone 100 days without an accident.
Yeah.
I really can't think of any injury accident we've had since I've been over here. I've only been over 4 months, so I can't really speak to earlier than that.
Well, now you got 4 months.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But we have regular safety meetings, we have tailgate meetings, and we're going to start the in-person safety meetings with the district safety people, which was coming up next week.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty robust safety
Yeah,
program.
in particular because you have operators doing the maintenance, so they play 2 roles, which you don't have dedicated maintenance people.
True.
Right.
Very true.
Thank you.
I have a question about the increasing number of vehicles in the canals. Now, this isn't a new problem, but it seems like more and more vehicles are driving into the canals or having accidents and falling into the canals. I don't know. Have these occurred at any one particular place? What's kind of the analysis of these vehicles?
Actually, no. It doesn't seem any rhyme or reason other than probably 50% of them are alcohol related. So, but as far as one hotspot where we've seen more, it's been basically on every canal. Mm-hmm. So there's really nothing that we could do to prevent these because we never know, mm-hmm. where they're going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And are you working with the sheriff's department? Are they mostly involved, or is it in the city of Naples, or where?
We get contacted by the county whenever there's a car goes in the canal, and if they need our assistance, we'll send someone out. Otherwise, we go evaluate the damage done to the car going in or the wrecker pulling it out and decide if we need to do any repairs to the bank.
Mm-hmm. What about hazardous waste? What if in one of these accidents the gas tank, disperses into the canal?
Yeah, we actually just had a meeting with the county about this, and they're usually first on scene on these, and they will be putting out booms if it's needed. Luckily, most of them go in pretty gentle, and it's not really been an issue as far as gas in the water or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So we've been lucky on that part.
Okay, I appreciate that, because that number's going up.
Oh, yeah.
And we were concerned about that as a board before, and now there's more vehicles going into the canals, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The water conditions report was Mr. Brad Jackson. And Brad, I think you're prepared to talk about how some of the capital projects completion of the capital projects have helped you this year doing your job. So please highlight that for the board.
Yep.
Thank you.
Definitely will do. So good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Brad Jackson, the basin engineer, and as usual, I'm here to talk about the water conditions report since our last meeting back last October. So here I'll just start off real quickly with a summary of our last year's rainfall and kind of what we saw, what are the takeaways, anything that stood out as interesting. Really, the takeaway here was a pretty average year for us in terms of rainfall. We didn't have any huge rainmakers, and the water kind of came in a nice distribution, so it let us manage the system effectively for the most part. So the information here, the last dry season, we started off behind and had a pretty dry spring. Wet season came in. It was pretty typical, a little bit above normal, and then as it ended, we had a late, decent November rainfall where we had about 4 inches of rain, but then really it's tapered off since December. So 95% of normal, and it didn't come all at once, which is perfect for water management that we do. On the right here, I did include kind of the totals by basin for each of our regions inside the BCB, so you can kind of see the variability of rainfall. It was pretty evenly distributed. We had Henderson Creek had 60 inches, which is towards the bottom left of the screen there, but really nothing stood out as overwhelming or a problem for us. So just real quickly, I'll stair-step through the months here. This is our November time frame. Then we had, the 4-inch rainfall, and that was really very early in the month. And that was our last real rainfall for the year. It hasn't really rained much since then inside the basin. We had a few hot spots that got decent chunks of rain, then that early November rain near Fakahatchee and the OK Slough area up by Immokalee. Other than that, it was really nothing really noteworthy, just 1.5 inches of rain everywhere else. So that rainfall was beneficial right as we exited the wet season, so that let us top off some of the system and hold on to some of that water. I skipped December here because it was so dry. The map was all one color, and there really wasn't anything to share there. So fast forward to January, we were behind, had another below average month. Really nothing really above 2 inches. There's a couple little areas that had 3 inches of rain up by Immokalee again, but really the most of the area is pretty dry, which isn't abnormal for this time of year, but it is drier than normal, which you might start to see a pattern there. February, again, this is another dry month. Haven't even had 1 inch of rainfall this month yet. This is through the 20th, and if the forecast holds, we'll probably end up with that 0.9 inches for the full month, which is 50% of normal for our area. Really nowhere stood out that really had a highlight as far as got the most rainfall, and it's a pretty quiet month in terms of water management. Our systems really held on to the water that we have gotten so far, and then I'll highlight that a little bit later. So instead of looking at the calendar year, talk here about the water year. It starts in May, and kind of look at how much water did we get through the wet season. Will that carry us through our dry season, and how does that look? Just like before, it was pretty much average. We had a little bit more wet season rain and pretty much no rain in the dry season. 98% of average, really not a whole lot to say here other than it was a good year for us and we didn't have any outstanding rain events. The wet season did come to a close back in October, pretty much right on schedule. So with that, I'll move over here. How much water did we move through the system and out to the tidal areas during the wet season and dry season? Because it's not only a wet season operation. We do have to provide flood control and balance the amount of water that we move out of the system versus what do we retain in the system as we exit the wet season. So you've got the blue numbers. That's how much water we discharged in thousands of acre feet at each one of these coastal structures. You may ask yourself if that's a big number or is that typical? So we had pretty much average rainfall, but these numbers are below average. So that tells me we're able to target where we want to release the water where it rains rather than it moving all the way through the system. So this is some of those capital improvements. We're able to automate and target exactly where we want to move that water out rather than just having everything open uniformly and respond to a more uniform rain event. So this lets us target more specifically exactly where we want to move the water from. I would highlight here as well the dry season discharges. While I've got the date on here that it goes through a couple days ago, the 21st, all but one of these structures is no longer discharging to tide. So the Cocohatchee, Golden Gate, and Picayune Strand, we haven't discharged really anything out of that since December of last year. So all that water we're able to hold in the system, prevent saltwater intrusion, and promote aquifer recharge for when we need it most. Is now as the dry season kicks hold. Henderson Creek, I'll note, we haven't discharged out of there since November. Which is a little bit unusual. That was our highest rainfall for the year, but we did have the shortest amount of duration where we discharged out of the system. So it's lets us hold more and keep that water aquifer saturated longer. So this is our snapshot in time. This is just what does it look like on the 21st of February? How do our canal levels look in terms of historic record? And the thing to note here is on the left, we're seeing lots of blues and blacks, which means we're higher than normal for this time of year. If you see the greens, we're pretty much normal in those canal reaches. They're hit or miss, and that's just because we've had improvements in some places. Some places had more rain, and those improvements are some of the capital projects. Up there in the Corkscrew area, you'll see that in the very upper reach of Corkscrew by Cork 2, Curry, all that's black, and that's the 90th percentile, which is great for this time of year. We want to hold that water in the system, and normally it would be a couple feet lower than it is today. So that's one of our capital projects that helps with that. If you look over to the right side of that same chart, you'll see the Picayune Strand restoration and the Faki Union. This was the first year we had the Faki Union pump station operating for flood control and for restoration. So instead of that water leaving the system through the canal, it's now dispersed over the land surface, and that's why you're seeing that black kind of area that shows that increased restoration at work. And then also upstream of that, that's water that we can hold in the system as well that's not discharged to tide, and then balance the restoration flow deliveries with the surface water levels inside Faki Union. If you look over to the right side of the screen, that's our Corkscrew Regional area. Pretty much there, we're pretty right smack in the middle. We're normal for this time of year. We're probably somewhere between the 50th and 75th percentile. So we've still got a little bit of water on the surface, and I know this is an area that we're looking at closely for future modeling efforts and how do we help this region. But right now, water levels look pretty well for late February. So I'll quickly run through these. This is just, instead of just a snapshot in time, it gives you the trend for a few key points. If you recall, I'll try to keep the colors the same. The green is kind of our normal area. If you're above that, we're above normal, which is what we're trying to do this time of year. But you can see the trends for GG1 and Golden Gate number 4, try to get a cross-section of the basin. The takeaway here, if you look at the bottom, GG1, you can see where the purple line moved up to the very top of that band, the dry season band back in October, and we've been able to hold that towards the top of that level. Even with you can see the lack of rainfall as it occurs. As it starts to recede, we can't there's no more water in the system for us to move and keep those levels up. So that really shows how we're rainfall dependent, and all of the remote operations and the higher control elevations that we can put in place during the dry season really help us here. So up to the Cocohatchee here, the same story. We're looking well. We're near the top of normal operational range and above normal for this time of year on both reaches. You will see the recession at Coco 3, which is a little bit to the east there, but it's still above normal, and we haven't discharged any water out of that system since mid-November. Move over to the right, we've got Faki Union 5 on the top. It's pretty steady for this time, until you get into the really late part of dry season. You really don't start to see a recession until that blue line starts to intercept the wet operational range around June, which ends up being perfect for us there. It's interesting to note here on the bottom, FU1, this is the coastal structure south of Picayune Strand. Everything else has been higher than normal. This one's lower than normal, which makes sense if you think about the restoration water that we've pumped. It's now sitting on the landscape and in the aquifer rather than being discharged here. So it does make sense why that one would be lower. And then Henderson Creek over here to a little bit, we're pretty much right in the green on both of these, and it'll continue to follow those trends to their normal dry season lows. Back over to Picayune Strand really quickly. You can see our levels that we've had, our water levels just upstream of the pump stations. This isn't indicative of the restoration water, which I'll show on a later slide, but this is the water level upstream. And you can see in both cases, we pretty much throughout the summer moved those and trended them up towards their kind of dry season levels until the water is no longer there for us, and you'll see those recessions. But we want to balance the amount of water we send to restoration and that goes through the what's retained upstream. So besides what's in the canal, what's sitting on the landscape surface, it's in some of the natural areas. So I'll focus here on Picayune Strand. On the left, you've got a snapshot of today. On the right, it's a year ago. Those look pretty close. We've had 2 pretty average years. And in the middle was the end of our wet season right at November of last year. So you can see a lot of the greens and light blues in the Picayune Strand. You can see the Merritt Pump Station to the right, and then the FACA Union right above the R in the PSRP. That's where you can see the restoration at work. If you see today, that's not there anymore as much. The water is receding since we haven't pumped. And like I mentioned, at the Crew area, that area to the north, it's pretty much normal for this time of year, which the colors on the left look very similar to the colors on the right. So groundwater, we've looked at, I'd say we want to hold all the water we can in the system and promote the recharge of the fresh water down to the lower aquifers. Overall, things look pretty well for us. Things are receding as they normally do this time of year. Everything's pretty much in the normal range for these handful of wells that we have on the map here. The one that is in the yellow indicator, which seems to happen every year, is the one by Coco 1, which is the C1004R. I would expect that to parallel the 25th percentile, kind of the bottom of the green band as we end the dry season. So can we expect more of the same? It's been dry since November. There's still a La Nina effect that's has a cooling effect in the Pacific Ocean. That has a direct impact on our climate here. It pretty much tells us we have a warmer and drier than normal winter and spring. So that's the pattern we've been in since November. It's expected to continue through at least summer. So you can see on the right, we've got March all the way through June. You've got the brown shades there, which indicate lower than normal rainfall chances. So we'll continue that trend as we jump into wet season. The La Nina's hopefully it looks like it will fade into a neutral, and then you've got equal chances of everything. At this point, I tell you what the local or the short-term forecast is, but we know it's going to be hot and dry, so I won't do that. And I'll close here and happy to take any questions.
Are there any board comments or questions? I have a question for you, Brad. In looking at the direct relationship between some of our new capital projects and what you're able to do with water, is there a way that maybe at our next board meeting you could show us a before and after, like maybe take a slide a year ago or something to compare apples to apples in that way? Because as I drive around, and I don't know if the other board members have noticed this too, but some of the canals look really great. They're holding a lot of water, and you're really doing a terrific job. And I know that you have more tools now in your toolbox with some of those projects coming online, but I think that anything that we can do to communicate how one supports the other would be very helpful, I think, for the public and also for the board.
Yeah, sure. I'll put something together for next time to highlight that.
That's great, because I think that's just so important. Mr. Hill, go ahead.
Brad, on slide 14, interesting slides of where the water is holding, the groundwater. Would it make sense to look at it maybe 4 or 5 years ago when the pump stations were just in the planning stage?
So it would be interesting. We could go back. I mean, it's probably going to look very similar to the urban areas that we have inside Collier County. So if you look at the I-75, Cocohatchee, kind of the middle of the urban system, it's probably going to look a lot like that, because we had the those 4 canals that are existing in the system, and it dried out that surface. You didn't have water sitting on the surface. And also, this is a new tool, so we would have to develop a way to go back in time and look at that, which we can do.
Okay.
But my thought is that it would be it looked very similar to the urban areas, where the intent was to keep the water below, deep underground.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board? Thank you very much, Brad. Appreciate your report. Thank you. All right, Lisa Keeler, are you there, please? It's your Basin Administrator's report.
Well, I think I'm still here, if you can still hear my voice. Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got a couple of items first to discuss. And the first one is the 3-year lease for the office space that we rent to Collier County. We've been renting this space to them for the last 8 years, and they have asked to extend it not just for 1 year, but for 3. That brings our revenues for that period to just over $240,000. The county has been a great tenant. It's nice having another governmental entity to rent to. It makes them very reliable. And it is advantageous to us to have Collier County right next door. So unless you have any questions, I would like to move this 3-year lease forward to the execution by the Board of County Commissioners, as well as the District Governing Board.
Are there any questions from the board members? And what's the consensus on the direction?
I certainly think it's a wise thing to do, and agree with Lisa. It's a perfect tenant for an entity like ours.
Yeah, Nanette, how do you feel?
Lisa and I had a little bit of a sidebar discussion on this, and once I learned more about what the lease covers that the tenant is paying for, it is pretty comprehensive. They basically are accountable for any expense associated with this property, which is actually very good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And how about you, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, Lisa and I spoke. I think we covered it. I think we're good. I'm comfortable moving forward with it.
Okay, and I certainly support this. So the board consensus, Lisa, is for you to move forward with it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The second item I have today is the annual payment of $1 million to Collier County in accordance with the settlement agreement for the purchase of the roads in Southern Golden Gate Estates that is for the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. We also need to review and accept their work plan outlining how they will utilize those funds. And that work plan is attached in your packet. And staff has reviewed it along with the field station. And we find that their work plan is consistent with what they've done in the past. We're happy with what they plan on doing going forward. I would like to note that this is our last that we have one more $1 million payment that will be made next fiscal year. And then our 20-year obligation will be fully met. And with that, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions or discussion on the work plan that Lisa intends to move forward with? Looks like the board consensus is for you to move forward, Lisa. It'll be a good day when we no longer have that payment, I will tell you that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. With your indulgence, I have one more item I'd like to work in here. And that is, I would like to thank Mark Wiederstein. Mark has taken a new position in the district and will no longer be working on the basin's budget. Mark has been my direct support in building the basin's budget for the last 8 years. And I really appreciate all the help he's given, as well as the process he set up for us. As you know, our tentative budget happens in July, following July 4th, Independence Day. And while we're all having a good time and enjoying the holidays, spending time with friends, out barbecuing, going to fireworks, Mark, as well as Candy and Julie, I don't want to discount them, the whole budget office is hard at work to bring in our final budget numbers and be ready for our basin board meeting. And they've missed out on all of those celebrations. So this year, in his new position, Mark is going to finally be able to celebrate our nation's Independence Day. And Mark, I would like to help you kick off your first July 4th celebration in many, many years. And I will be sending a pack of sparklers back over to the West Coast, the East Coast for you via Candy and Julie. And I hope you enjoy your festivities this year. And I thank you so much for your years of support to the Basin. And it has been an honor to work with you. Thank you so much, Mark. And with that, Madam Chair, I have no other comments for you today unless there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Lisa Keeler? There's no board questions, Lisa, and I'd like to also echo Lisa's comments for Mark on behalf of this board. I mean, he has been such an important part of our budget process for so long, and he's going to be missed, and we'll miss him, but I know that Miss Candy Heater's really going to miss him. But he's not moving far. He's going to our information technology division, so we'll still get to keep his professional talent around. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, Miss Candy Heater, you've got the monthly financial report for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. So the monthly financial report that is in your package for today is through December 31st, 2021, so the first quarter of fiscal year 2022. Right now, you are at 85.2% of collections of your recurring revenues, and that is ahead of schedule. We're 25% through the year, and you've already collected 82.5% of your revenues. You have $11.2 million ad valorem revenue. You've already collected $9.6 million, so 86%. So you're doing very well. The expenses, we have expended and obligated, meaning projects and expenses are either under contract and or expended at a rate of 57%. So your staff are hard at work and getting things done for you, and your revenues are coming in very nicely, and we foresee no issues at this moment.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Heater from the board? I see no questions, Candy, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the next general public comment period. If there's anyone in the public who would like to comment on any item that's not on the agenda. Ms. Connor, do we have anyone? Do we have the individual that wanted to speak earlier? Is she on the line?
I think that was resolved, as well as the gentleman earlier today, and with that, I have no more public comment.
Great, that's super. Thank you for taking care of that. Okay, that brings us to final board comment. Is there any final board comment? Mr. Hill, we'll start with you.
No, we covered a ton today. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you, but with the chaos in my day job, I felt better at least being here with stuff in front of me. And so I look forward to seeing you all again soon. I got a couple things I'm working on behind the scenes that I hopefully will be able to report on next time we visit. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Well, it's been seamless, so even though we missed having you here and you didn't get the cupcakes that we all took advantage of, you're still an active participant, which we really appreciate. Ms. Rivera.
The only comment I have is to echo the congratulations on your reappointment, and I'm very happy to be working with you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you. Vice Chair Waters.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Great. I got a couple of brief items. I wanted to let the board know that I went out and visited the Immokalee Water and Sewer District. And I want to thank Sarah Catala and her team for hosting me and Miss Lisa Keeler to look at their operation. And it was a very informative visit. And I really appreciated the time that they spent. I'd also like to mention that as we talk about some of the fleet questions that come up with Mr. Andrew Wolf and the replacements and some of those high-dollar items, after our last meeting, I went over to the field station to get more informed about the Gradall. And I would offer that to the board members who would like to learn more about these numbers and these pieces of equipment, to maybe meet informally with Mr. Wolf and get into the weeds with him on these pieces of equipment, or take a walk around the yard and look at the old trucks and the new trucks and see what the difference is. Because I wasn't quite sold on that big number for that Gradall until I sat down with him, and then he answered my questions and then provided the supporting materials for that piece of equipment. But every component of that item is expensive. And as you know, prices are going up. So I would offer that to you as well. Because I want to thank you, Andrew. That was a great session, and I would offer that to anybody to take advantage of, to learn that from you. I'd also like to thank all of the district staff folks who traveled today and supported this board meeting today. It's really important to have your professional expertise and your contributions to this board so that we can do our jobs more effectively. And I'd also like to thank the Basin staff, the whole small team of the Basin that really works the moving parts. Today was seamless, and everybody heard Lisa from Zoom, and her voice hopefully will return, but she didn't quite have it today. So we wish you well, Lisa. We hope you get better soon. And with that, our next meeting is April 28th, 2022. And with that, the meeting's adjourned.
I've never caught a glimpse how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. Change it. Turn and face the strain. Changes.